So when are we going to open the church? When are we going to open the church? That's a great question, but I'd like us to change the language just a little bit because the church never closed. The church building closed. We've been on mission and we've seen tons of traction in the kingdom since the church building has actually been locked. But we're going to get back together. The question is, when are we going to do that? So in terms of terminology, I'm actually starting to call this a relaunch because we're going to launch into a new reality. So we're relaunching MCC. And I know you have a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to answer just as many of them as I can here. And so we'll jump in. But before we do, a quick story. I was in 8th grade, and I went to church camp for the first time. And there I met a guy named Gary Grieven. Gary was the pastor of Maryland Church at the time, a senior pastor. And so Gary says to the campers, hey, if anybody wants to go on a hike tonight, meet me right here at midnight. And we'll do what we call traditionally a midnight hike. And I'm like, well, okay. So we roll up and there's a small group of us. And it's my first, again, I'm 8th grade camp. I'm like the low man on the totem pole. I'm just hanging out like, I don't know what this is about. So Gary's like, let's go. So we walk down to the edge of the woods and Gary turns around and he says to our small group, he says, we're going to hike 5 miles through the dark, uphill. When we get there, it's going to be worth it. And then he turned around and he started running as fast as he could. And so it was right then that I realized a couple things. One is that I had to trust Gary. I had to trust this leader in the dark. And then if I was going to get the second thing that I realized is if I was going to get to the top of the hill, I was going to have to do it one step at a time. Well, how did it end? Well, that's a great question. And I'll tell you how it ends after I share with you some of the plans that we have here around Maryland. And you may be wondering like, okay, man, what's the plan? Like I heard that some churches can meet. I heard that churches can meet. And I heard that some people are putting this date on the calendar. And when are we going to meet? Are we going to meet next Sunday? Or are we going to meet next month? We're not meeting until next year, are we? I mean, no, we're not going to wait till next year, are we? Well, listen, somewhere along the way, all of our staff missed the class in school that was titled Leading the Church Through a Pandemic because there's not a class. Like we don't have a playbook for this. We're kind of making it up as we go along, and we're collecting a lot of data. We're also praying super hard, asking God, what is it that you would desire us to do? And it reminds me of Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 9 when it says, the mind of a man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. The mind of a man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. And so we want to talk about our steps to relaunch. Now, Governor Holcomb came out with a proposal that was a 5-stage plan to get Indiana back on track. And if you heard him and have seen that in print, what you'd realize is that concerning churches, here's what Governor Holcomb and his staff said. He said, churches are free to meet. Now, he needed to say that underneath the religious liberties, and I get that. He said, churches are free to meet, but he said, I'd prefer that churches stay online and do aggressive social distancing. And so when we apply those guidelines, those social distancing guidelines, I don't know if you've seen them. I'm going to go through a few of them with you, but they're very deep and they're very detailed. And when we apply all of those guidelines towards Maryland, they're cumbersome. They're a really heavy lift because of our size. And MCC is not a speedboat where we can make a quick turn. MCC is more like a big battleship, and it takes a while to turn the battleship. It takes longer to turn. You know, every weekend before before COVID stuff became more widespread, we were seeing about 2,500 people physically on our campuses. There's probably about 6,000, 7,000 people that would say Maryland is their home. They don't go every weekend, but Maryland is their home. And since we've been online, we've seen an average of probably 6,000 households that are joining us. So we have to consider size when it comes to our gatherings. And so we could make a choice. We could say, we're going to meet right now. We're going to start meeting next Sunday underneath all of the guidelines. That would be one choice. Or we could say, we're going to wait for all this to go away and all the CDC guidelines to go away so we can full blast, full charge back to what kind of normal was, what used to be. Those are kind of both sides. So which one of those are we going to do? Neither one. But what we're going to do is we're going to stair step our way. We're going to step our way just as I had to step my way towards the top of the ridge with Gary. We're going to step our way towards a relaunch. Now, for some of you, these steps are going to be way too slow. and you're going to be frustrated and you're going to have questions. You're going to say, well, I wouldn't do it like that. For some of you, these steps are going to be way too fast. And you're going to say, man, that's just causing me a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of fear. But here's what you need to know. In these steps, we're leaving it to you in the way that you want to engage when it comes to worship, when it comes to small groups. If you say, I'm not comfortable in meeting in groups here, then there's an online option for you. And when you're ready to engage, then you come and you can engage with us. Now, these steps are based on a lot of different factors, but one of the prevailing factors that they're based on is in the CDC steps and Governor Holcomb's steps. There are steps for the size of social gatherings. So the social gathering size gets larger as we go along through the Indiana stages and even through our steps. And so I'm going to give you, and I'm going to go into some detail on the steps for Maryland Community Church to get us towards relaunch. There's a lot of information that I'm going to share, but there's a document, there's a link to a document at the bottom here, or the information will be there that'll give you some more information. You may still have questions as those come up. We're trying to answer as many of those as we can, be as clear of those as we can. But know this, the steps that we're going to give you are going to have dates that are attached to them. But those dates are actually pretty loose because we may need to adjust those. We could get into the process, and it could be that the governor says, hey, our stage 3, we need to stay there for a couple more weeks. And so we're going to need to adjust that as we go along. But let me go through the steps, our MCC steps towards relaunch, okay? Step 1 is a shelter in place. Okay, that started on March 16th and ran through about May 8th. That's where everything is closed, every single thing is online, and nobody's getting together. Okay, we've gone through that step. Step 2 is a step we're calling small gatherings. Okay, that's where we are right now, and we'll run through about June 20th. Okay, now let me say this. If you're in a high-risk category, if you're over 65 or you have some autoimmune challenges or you're just not in the best of health, man, you stay isolated until we get fully opened, okay? And you engage when you're ready to engage, okay? So all of our steps, I just want you to use your own discretion of where you want to engage, okay? So in step 2, small social gatherings, what does that mean for our worship services? That means our worship services, you want to join us, you can join us online, like you've been doing in your home with your families. You can also, we know some people are doing what we call watch parties, where they're saying, hey, I want to invite my small group over to my house on a Sunday morning, or I want to invite a few friends over to my house on a Sunday morning. Listen to me, with social distancing guidelines in place. If you do that, you need to have your social distancing guidelines in place. And so that's the step that we're in. Small groups, you can join online. There are a few small groups that are gathering if they feel comfortable. And if you're in a small group and you don't feel comfortable, you just need to say like, man, I'm just not crazy about joining. And there's no problem in that at all. If you are gathering together, you need to gather and you need to honor the social distancing guidelines, which right now in this stage is 25 people or fewer, okay? So we are in step 2 right now. And in this step, our MCC facilities are closed. Our office staff is all working off-site. So that's step 2. Step 3 will start, we think, around June 15th. And it's really the same as step 2. The only difference is that the MCC staff, they're going to start slowly trickling back in and slowly start working in our offices. But that's not going to affect us, affect everybody to a deep degree. Our building is still going to be closed. They're just going to be coming in and doing some work. Step 4 is our big step, okay? Or the biggest step to point, okay? June 21, which is Father's Day, what we're targeting is a worship, we're calling a worship hybrid, okay? So here's how you may engage, or you may decide to engage on that day. You may say, I'm gonna worship online with my family, just like I've been doing. I'm gonna tune in, I'm gonna worship that way. And we're gonna continue to provide what we have been providing, or something very similar to that, okay? You also may say, I'm gonna do a watch party. I'm gonna have some people over to my house, or I'm gonna go to somebody else's house, and as I gather, I'm gonna do that under social distancing guidelines. Or you may choose on June 21st, on Father's Day, to join us on one of our campuses. Our campuses will be open that day, but listen, it's not open the way that it was before all this happened. We have to open with strict social gathering restrictions. Okay, so what might that look like? Now I'm going to give you some general ideas of what it might look like on June 21st if you come to one of our physical campuses. Okay, now this may change and it may adjust, and we will give you more detailed information as we get closer, but here's what it will probably look like. Again, if you're over 65 and you have autoimmune or you kind of feel like your health is not great, like, man, join us either online, just in your home, or maybe that's probably the best way to do. But if you're going to join us at one of our physical locations, what that means is you will need to make a reservation because our space will be limited. And the reason our space is limited is because of the restrictions. Here are some of these restrictions. These are from the state of Indiana. 6 feet between individual families and units, okay? Marked seatings in alternating rows, which what that means is that if you're sitting in a row, the row in front of you is empty, the row behind you is empty. It also means that your family will sit together, your kids will sit with you, okay? There will not be student or children's ministry at this point, and you're responsible for your kids have to stay with you. They cannot run around, okay? You're gonna have to we'll put 2 to 3 chairs between family groups. So again, that's limiting our size. We may have face coverings that day. We're not sure yet. There'll be no contact greetings. We won't be handing out materials. Our cafe will likely be closed. If we do communion, it will be in a very different way. Offering plate will not be passed. If we do altars, we will do them they're just going to be very, very different the way that we do it. And at this point, I'm not sure that we can even do that. It may be come in, take your seat, we do some worship, and then we leave. There's not hugging, there's not handshakes, and then we're cleaning everything between every service. I mean, it's a heavy, heavy lift, so you have to know it's going to look very different. But that's what we're thinking as we go into step 4. Again, that's June 21. If there's an overwhelming number of people who want to come with reservations and more people than space, then we're going to have to navigate how we do that. So again, on June 21, as we hit step 4 for us, it's a limited large gathering. So it's a hybrid system. You can stay online like you've been doing. You can do a watch party, or you could come to one of our physical gatherings. But every time we gather, okay, we're going to do some social gathering restrictions that we're going to be underneath. Then into step 4 would be our large gatherings, or step 5 would be our large gatherings. And July 4th, according to Indiana, that would be 250 people plus with social distancing. And so how that all plays is a little bit, still trying to figure that out. But we're hoping by the time we get to that, then things begin to relax. We could put more and more people in there. We're just really not sure. Our kids and student ministries in step 5 may open up then. We don't know. We're watching to see what the schools are going to do as we kind of figure out our whole relaunch. At step 5, our facilities may start to be open during the week. Again, all of these dates are flexible. And I know I've put a ton of stages on you and a ton of information. That's why we've printed it all out as well. But listen, we're in an uncommon time. We serve an uncommon God and an uncommon mission. So can I just ask you for a favor? Be uncommon. In this season, be uncommon. A common response would be to find all kind of holes in whatever plan anybody comes up with. But we're not common, we're uncommon. A common response would be to complain to people about what you don't like about this or about that. But we're not common, we're uncommon. Common response would say, well, I don't like that, so I'm not going to give. Or I don't like that, so I'm going to, whatever. But we're not common, we're uncommon. Common response would just be to get frustrated and stop praying for leaders or for our church, but we're not common, we're uncommon. And so I want to ask you to do something really uncommon. This may be, I'm asking for a favor here, okay? Our staff is not much different than you. They've navigated this season and all the hardships of it, and a lot of our staff had to become homeschool moms and homeschool dads and navigate doing work at home, and they've transitioned a whole organization online, and now they're going to transition it to a relaunch. But I'll tell you about our staff. They are unquestionably committed to Jesus. They're unquestionably committed to the mission. We love our church, and we love you. And I'll tell you this from our staff. We're tired, and a lot of us are drained, and we're bruised. We're battling frustration. We're fighting through fear. We're fighting through anxiety. And now our staff is getting ready to do an even harder work to take steps towards our relaunch. And none of us are checking out. None of us are leaving. We're all digging in because we love Jesus, we love his mission, and we love you. And so here's the favor that I ask. It's uncommon, but I want to ask you this favor. I want to ask you to pick a staff person. Go to our website and find our staff listing right there. I want you to pick a staff person. Don't pick me, pick somebody else. But pick a staff person, and I want you to just surround them with prayer and just cover them with encouragement. Maybe send an email saying, man, keep going. Thanks for all you're doing. I would love for our staff to be shocked. They don't know that I'm asking this. I would love for them to be shocked at your support of just saying, come on, keep going. We're behind you. I think that would do wonders for them. And listen, this journey, as hard as it is, and man, isn't it hard? As hard as it is, it's going to be great. And it is great. How do I know? Because our God is great. So back to our story. I chased Gary through the woods for 2.5 miles. And we ended up at the top of this hill. It's 1:30 in the morning. And I'm with a group of people. And I saw a view that few people would ever see. So we gathered around, and Gary said, look over there. And we looked way off in the distance, and we could see the lights of the camp that we just came from. It was 2.5 miles away, but we had done it. And we were tired, and we were sore. And some of us, honestly, in our group, they were bloody from getting like all chewed up with sticks. But we knew that we had taken the hill, and we had done it one step at a time in the dark, following our leader. And listen, the view was amazing, and the view was worth it. So we're taking steps together. We're taking steps in the dark. We're following our leader, Jesus, through it. And we're going to get tired. We're going to get bruised. We're going to get bloody. But the view, like the view already, God is doing more in this season than I've seen him do in almost any other season. And we're not even through it yet. And I think we're going to turn around and see a view and go, wow, look at what the Lord has done. So let's trust our leader, Jesus, even in the dark. And let's take it one step at a time. And let's look forward to an amazing view. I'm reminded of this view in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Let me end with this. Paul says this. However, as it is written, what no eye has seen, and what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him. We got a great view coming ahead. So let's stay strong as we take our steps.